This is the Kia EV4 Hatchback, and not to be confused with the EV4 Fastback, the hatchback is only for Europe. The rest of the world all gets the Fastback, but only Europe gets this version. Why? Well, because Europeans really like hatchbacks for some reason. And this has a lot of competitors in the C segment. That includes models like the Volkswagen ID.3, the Cupra Born, which is a close relation of it, the Opel Astra Electric, and other cars like the Peugeot E-308. So it's got a lot of competition, and it has to stand out, and it does it with this design. It is a very striking design, quite different, but very much in line with Kia's other models, things like the EV9, the range topping SUV, the smaller EV3, which was personally one of my highlight cars of last year. And this very much continues on this current design language that Kia has. And this particular model is the GT line. So this is the range topping or sportiest version, if you want to call it that, and it stands out with a slightly different front bumper. You've got a lot more gloss black materials here, like on the wheel arches, and pretty impressive looking headlights. You've got this vertical daytime running light, which is pushed right out to the side and emphasizes the car's width, but it's not a huge car. It's still probably on the bigger side of other cars in the segment, but still straddles in with all of its competitors overall. One thing where it does stand out is the wheelbase, which is the length between the front wheel and the rear wheel. So all this cabin space is one of the things that sets the Kia apart from many of its rivals. GT line versions get 19-inch wheels. The standard version gets more modest 17-inch wheels, but regardless of which spec you go for, they've all got pretty interesting and kind of polarizing designs. I recommend you go on the configurator and check out and see what it's like. Other details that are worth mentioning, well, initially these will come with a single version battery. It's a long range battery, just over 81 kilowatt hours. There is going to be a smaller standard range version, which will still have a pretty sizable 58 kilowatt hour battery as well. So either way, there's still a pretty solid set of specs when you do look at this car, regardless of which version you choose. They'll also only use the single motor, 150 kilowatt, that's 204 horsepower, drives the front wheels. In time, that will also double up with a all-wheel drive version, which will also have a motor on the rear axle, and there's also going to be a sporty GT version. What else do you have? Well, you've got things like flush fitting door handles to aid aerodynamics, and quite striking looks in terms of how the roofline looks. You've got this kind of C-pillar belt almost that comes up over the side, and quite pronounced haunches. Like on the front, the rear lights very distinctive looking. They don't run all the way across the full width, but still very easy to tell. Even at night, if you know your cars, you'll be able to tell that this is a Kia in front of you. You have EV4 badging here, high gloss black sections here for the GT line version. You've got a very subtle reversing camera built in there. You do get a wiper on this, unlike on the Fastback. The wiper is tucked in here out of the way, so you still get a nice clean look. There's a bit of a spoiler on the back, and when it comes to boot space, there's still a reasonable amount, 430 litres in the hatchback. Yes, not as much as what you get with the Fastback, but still, I think this is, it's more than you're going to get in, say like a Volkswagen Golf, which is always the car that everyone compares everything to. So you get a lot of room. You can lift up the floor here. There's an under section as well, so you can put things like your cables, other odds and ends. You can tuck all those away out of sight, and you still have quite a even load level. The rear seats fold down as well, so if you do need more space, you can drop those as well. And even on either side, there's some small little alcoves that you can tuck away some more items, and things like bike hooks are there as well. So overall, pretty practical car, quite functional for a hatchback, and it's kind of Kia doing the sensible thing, but wrapping it up in, well, quite an interesting design. The interior is also well worth a look, so let's go there next. Inside, the Kia is like we've seen in other more recent models from the Korean brand, and by that I mean very nicely laid out, lots of tech and pretty good materials. So okay, this is the GT line version, so it's the range topping sportier version. That means it's got some nicer materials and it's got things like different seats. There's not a huge difference between the two cars when you look at overall specifications. The seats themselves, these are electrically adjustable. There's lots of scope in terms of movement and adjustment, so very easy to have it exactly where you want in terms of finding a comfortable driving position. The steering wheel is manually adjustable and there's not bad amounts of reach and rake there in terms of movement, so I think most people will find a comfortable driving position quite easily. Steering wheel, it's kind of squarish design. It's very on trend for what we've seen. I do think it's a little bit on the big side. Nevertheless, the layout is quite nice. It does feel nice in your hand. For example, the stitching, none of it really feels like it's rubbing on you or coarse. You know, all the sort of touch points are good. Physical buttons are always a big thumbs up from me. Very easy to, you know, find your way around, and there's paddles on the backs here for adjusting the level of regen you have. Other things that are quite nice about it, well, all the heated seat controls, heated steering wheel functions, all done here on the door. Also on the armrest, nice big armrest, and physical buttons again for child locks, for windows, mirror adjustment. So it's really intuitive to find your way around this car. There are some sort of touch haptic buttons. For example, here on the center console, you've got shortcut buttons if you want to pull up the maps. This is all just flush, but you do have to press in and you get a little bit of haptic feedback from that. So that's quite good. It's a pretty good mix. You're probably not going to use them all that much. And even though you do have a digital display here for controlling the aircon, there's still physical buttons here for the temperature, the mode, the fan speed, which again is a big plus for me. Now, what about that screen? Well, actually, you've 3 screens going on here. It's all behind the one panel, but either side you have a 12.3 inch display. So your instrument display is 12.3 inch, your touchscreen is a 12.3 inch, and sandwiched here in the middle is a 5.3 inch display. And it is a little bit redundant because of those buttons. Okay, your things like your window demister is there and your automatic function for the aircon, but overall you probably don't really use it all that much because you're just going to use these. And then the instrument display, nicely laid out, all the information is there. It's very crisp, clear, easy to read. The infotainment system, again, quite intuitive to use. You'll be pleased to know there's all the usual smartphone mirroring as well. Android Auto, Apple CarPlay is there, and you can also connect all your devices either wirelessly. You've got USB-C ports back here. You've even got a 12 volt 180 watt power socket there, and a rubberized floor where the wireless charger is. So when you put your phone on there, first of all, as soon as you put it on, it starts charging up very quickly, but also it's not going to move around or dislodge itself as you're driving. So I quite like that they put a rubberized floor there. What they haven't done is really done that in the rest of it here, because some of the materials here are a little bit scratchy, a little bit plasticky. So for example, you drop your key in there, it's going to be rattling around, things like that. Minor problem, I know, but still, these are worth pointing out. The amount of space under here is quite good though, and you push those, you've got your cup holders will pop out. There's also some more storage underneath here too. So yeah, there's pretty practical inside when it comes to how many things and odds ends. The door bins are bigger here. They're not as good in the back. I'll show you that in a moment. And overall, I like the material quality. It all feels well made. There's a nice mixture of colors and surfaces and materials, so all that is quite good. Yes, it meets a lot of the sustainability end of things. There's a lot of recycled fabrics in here, materials, and the ambient lighting is there, but it's not too in your face, so doesn't look like a nightclub at night. You still have a little bit of strips of ambient lighting here in front of the dashboard, a little bit down the sides, so it's not too in your face, and that's a pretty good thing. They will change according to your driving mode. Other than that, rear visibility is actually pretty good. Okay, if you've got 3 adults back there, you might not be able to see as much, but you do get decent sized door mirrors, and I really like the function that when you turn on the indicators, the cameras automatically activate, so you can see then here in your blind spot exactly what's going on, so you're not going to miss a thing, and that's a really good safety feature. But let me show you these rear seats. Rear passengers aren't going to have a whole lot to complain about back here. I mentioned that wheelbase earlier on, the distance between the front and rear wheels, and it's very evident when you get in here. Now, the overall space I can't complain about. I'm average height, 5'9", but I've got plenty of headroom, not going to complain about that. I'm sitting behind my normal driving position, so I'm sitting behind myself, as it were, and I've so much knee room here, leg room. Okay, it's not the best in terms of stretching your feet out underneath the seat in front, but still, being electric, you've got a fully flat floor here as well, so very easy to get comfortable here. Okay, the middle seat, these guys always get the short straw, especially in this segment. It's a lot firmer as a seat base, and it's not really that wide, so even if you're not carrying 3 people, if you're going to try and put an extra booster seat in here, you may struggle, so just bear that in mind. Maybe try it out before you buy. You do get ISOFIX points in the 2 outer rear seats, so that's pretty good, and this being the GT line version means I also get heated outer rear seats, and the controls for that are here on the doors next to the window switch, so that's pretty decent. Other things, this car has the optional sunroof, but it's a real traditional sunroof in that it's only over the front seats. You don't get that full glass roof that some other car manufacturers offer. Not the end of the world, but still it does make it feel a little bit darker back here. The windows are a decent enough size, and they're kind of long as well, so you do get a decent amount of visibility outwards, and even the fact that the headrests in front have this kind of mesh material means you can actually kind of see through them, and I can still see all of that infotainment touchscreen in front as well. So if I'm looking at the maps or anything else, I can see exactly what's going on. You do also get USB-C ports back here. They're not down here in the center console, they're actually on the side of the seat. Very useful location for those. You've got a pop-out pocket here on the backs, and you've got vents but no temperature control. Still pretty good back here, lots of room, good amounts of headroom. Despite the fact that this car does start to slope down at the back, it doesn't eat into the amount of space you have. I think rear passengers will be very comfortable back here. Certainly 2 adults will have nothing to complain about. As well as a great range, Kia is also pretty good when it comes to charging. So depending on which version you get, you're going to be looking at around 31 minutes to charge 10 to 80% with a large battery. If you've got the smaller battery, it's only 29 minutes. So there's really no trade-off when it comes to charging. You won't have to stop for all that long. Kia also is determined to future-proof its cars. So things like vehicle to load, meaning you can use the power in your battery through a connection to power stuff like an e-bike, or if you're camping, things like that. And it's also capable of vehicle to grid as well. Let's start with first impressions, because there are a few to note with this Kia EV4 hatchback. The first thing is it's actually pretty quiet on the move, and it feels quite well insulated. Initially, the Kia EV4 will arrive with a long range 81 kilowatt hour battery, which is good for around 584 kilometers in this particular specification. Further after that, there will be a standard range version which has a smaller battery. It's still going to be about 58 kilowatt hours, so not a massive jump down. In fact, that battery may well be more than enough for a lot of people, but the initial batch of EV4s will come with that longer range battery, and that's the one that we're driving here at the moment. Now, we've been doing a fair bit of mixture of driving, it's safe to say. We've done some kind of higher speed motorway driving. We've done some slow speed traffic in towns. We're kind of on decent enough sort of B roads here, a little bit out of town. And we've also had the aircon going pretty solidly because it is currently 30 degrees ambience outside. So it's a pretty hot day here in Spain doing this test. I know I can hear the violins already. Now, what has it been consuming? Well, so far we've been averaging 17.7 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which is okay. It's not quite what the company claims it will do, but that figure, as we add more mileage to our trip, has gradually actually been coming down. So I think, you know, this is a car that over a longer term should prove to be reasonably efficient, and that's something that certainly I've experienced in previous Kia models that I've driven. It's actually just already gone down to 17.5 because you may be able to tell we're on some sort of hilly roads here. Now, one thing I do like about this, and not all EVs give you this option, but you've got paddles on the back of the steering wheel to adjust the intensity of the energy recuperation. And for me as a driver, that's something that I actually do use. I quite like being able to increase it or decrease it according to the situation that I'm driving in. You know, if I'm in the city, for example, in start-stop traffic, I like having it really at its strongest. Whereas on roads like this, which is a bit more free-flowing, I usually actually turn it off altogether. And this does have a kind of sail mode, if you want to call it that, whereby you can reduce it down to 0 and it will just freewheel as it's going downhill or through bends. And I quite like being able to carry that momentum with the car through a certain section of road. Now, if you do have it dialed up that bit further, it is actually quite good at that one pedal feel. It's quite strong, but it's also quite predictable, so it's very quick to be able to gauge exactly when you need to be lifting off in order to bring the car to a stop. One other feature that I do like about the Kia's onboard system is not only does it give you what it reckons your real world range is remaining, which is currently 373 kilometers with 70% state of charge, but it also gives you an estimated maximum and minimum. So the maximum is currently 485 kilometers and a minimum of 230. And I know most people probably don't pay too much attention to it, but if you are a newer EV driver, adding those 2 extra parameters, I think, will give people a lot of confidence, and it's a nice little feature to add on to have it there. So you're not just simply looking at the percentage dropping down on the battery, it is giving you an idea of just how much range you might have. There's also only one engine option with the EV4 from launch. It's a 150 kilowatt or 204 horsepower electric motor, and it's more than adequate for this type of car. It's quick if you need to pull out of a junction, and the power delivery is quite smooth. Even if you do want to accelerate quite hard, it's not really going to get unruly. Acceleration is around about 7 seconds depending on which version you go for, and that's plenty for a car like this. Now, I mentioned overtaking, and one thing I do like about this, and we've seen this on other Kia and even Hyundai models, is that when you do activate your indicators, you also get a live camera feed that pops up in the digital display. Now, this, I think, is a very good system, and you do get used to it quite quickly, but I'm also pleased that it doesn't tend to stop you using your mirrors. It just gives you a little bit of extra assurance that when you turn on the indicator, it's going to give you just that bit more clarity to make sure that you don't miss anything that might be in your blind spot. And I think it's one of those things that often probably just totally gets glossed over in reviews, but it's a really good system. I'm glad that it has it. On this particular version, it's included, and it's just one of many safety systems that are on the EV4. As with all new cars sold in Europe, the EV4 is also equipped with a heap of assistance and safety features to ensure that you don't speed and that you're always paying attention. Now, we understand a lot of people are not fans of such systems, especially because they are mandatory. Now, Kia has, like many manufacturers, come up with a slight workaround if you do want to diminish the amount of alerts that you get. So this speed limit warning, for example, if you just press and hold the volume button for about 3 seconds on the steering wheel, it just automatically mutes that for you. So some people might be pleased to know about that. And similarly for the lane keep assist as well, if you just press and hold the button for a few seconds, it will temporarily disable that. Now, these systems default to being on, so every time you start a new journey, you will have to do this, but at least you can do it by just pressing and holding a button rather than delving into several layers of menus on the touchscreen. In terms of ride quality and comfort, it does a pretty good job of soaking up the bigger bumps, but it retains a lot of composure, so it doesn't get out of shape. It's quite planted in some of the twisty bends that we've been driving on, and when it does hit a bump, it dampens it quite well, so you don't feel everything reverberate through the cabin, and you get a sense that this is quite well built, quite solidly built, and that in turn adds to the overall refinement of the car. Noise levels are pretty good. There's a little bit of powertrain noise from the electric motor, but nothing that's going to be irritating or annoying. And even at higher speeds, there's not that much road noise. Now, on more coarse tarmac and concrete roads, yes, it does get a little bit louder, and this car is running the slightly larger 19-inch wheels on the GT line specification. But even now we're doing 80 kilometers an hour. It is very quiet in here. There's barely any road noise coming through on this slightly nicer tarmac. I can't pick up any wind noise even from these decently sized mirrors, and that just really underlines the sense of refinement you get from driving the EV4. And I think if or when a dual motor all-wheel drive version comes along with this, it could be even nicer. The steering has a nice feel. I do think the steering wheel is just a little bit on the big side, but there's still plenty of adjustment there as well, as we showed you a little earlier in the video, and the seats themselves have proven to be pretty comfortable over this day of driving. There's even a decent enough feel from the steering through the bends, enough to give you confidence. Not overtly sporty, of course, but compared to some other cars in this segment that feel utterly devoid of any sort of feedback, Kia has at least made some sort of effort here. Overall, the combination of technology, a nice mix of physical buttons, the amount of space in here, it all feels very, very nice. The head-up display works great, and everything just works and integrates really seamlessly, and just feels like Kia has this really licked at this point. They've done such a, in my opinion, such a comprehensive job with it. And by the way, we've just gone under 15.9 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, so proves that even when you do want to have a little bit of fun in this car, it's still not doing all that much energy consumption. So that's our first drive review of the Kia EV4 Hatchback. There's a lot to digest with this. The interior is really great. I'm a fan of the design purely because it just is so different to everything else out there, and it's very practical. There's so much space inside. You've still got a decent boot. The driving range is something that you just can't ignore. It's very good, and the performance, well, it's more than enough for what most people will typically need. If you want to know more about the Kia EV4, head over to our website. It's CompleteCar.ie. You'll find a link to it in the description below, and it's a great resource for not only finding your next new car, but also keeping up with all the latest car news. We've also got a free email newsletter that goes out once a week, so why not sign up for that too? Thanks for watching.